Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight's information session about the Solar Assistance Program, which is a city program to support rooftop solar on commercial and large multifamily buildings. Next slide, please. So my name is Brad Pillen. I'm the Community Energy Programs Manager with the City of Cambridge in the Office of Sustainability. And we're joined tonight by our partners from Resonant Energy, Sana Wright and Rachel Gentili. You'll hear initially from me, and then you'll hear from Resonant folks as well with more details about the program. Just to note that this meeting is being recorded. Um, Following the presentation tonight, likely next week, we will send around a copy of the recording, which will be posted to the city's YouTube page, and also a copy of the slides as well, too. So we'll send those to everyone who registered. So we're going to save questions for the end of the presentation. We'll do live Q&A. Just to note that you are muted right now. If you would like to come off and ask a question later, you can just raise your hand. Then we'll be able to invite you to come off of mute. However, we do encourage and welcome you to submit questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A button. So if you look at the toolbar, should be at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. You can submit questions there. If you don't see it, if you click on More, which is the three dots, you might see it there. Feel free to submit questions at any point. They're fairly straightforward. We might be able to respond to them in real time. Otherwise, we'll just save those questions and we'll make sure we respond to them all at the end. And then finally, if you do have any questions following the presentation tonight or just want to get in touch with someone about the program, we encourage you to reach out to the program email address, which is cambridgesolar@resonant.energy. And that was just dropped into the chat as well, so feel free to copy that if you'd like to. So just to make sure that this is relevant to everyone who's here, the Solar Assistance Program is primarily for commercial and large multifamily property owners in Cambridge. So this could be whether it's your first time exploring solar and you want a detailed assessment of your options, or if you're already in process but are just looking for more input or to learn more about some creative financing pathways. You can also get connected with this program as well at that stage. Um, if you're not eligible for the program, or essentially if you are not owner of a commercial property or a large multifamily property, we would encourage you to visit Energy Sage, which Energy Sage is a Boston-based company that essentially serves as um, a sort of a marketplace where you're able to put in your address and you can solicit quotes from different solar companies. And that way you don't have to reach out to different companies and you don't have them all emailing you. You can just put information there. You can get quotes and proposals directly, as well as work with their energy or their solar advisors. So that does exist for residential property owners. There is a unique need for extra assistance with some of these commercial properties and larger multifamily properties, which is why we have this specific assistance program for those types of buildings. Um, and again, so this program is not typically suited for condo associations. One of the main reasons being that solar system can only be installed behind 1 meter, which makes it difficult to distribute the benefits among multiple condo owners. There can be some exceptions to that. For example, if a single condo owner has roof rates, but that is a not typical situation and generally is not the type that this program is designed to support. However, if your roof is particularly large, which would generally be about 7,500 square feet or larger, there are some exceptions or some variabilities there depending on different factors. Your condo building could be a host site for hosting community solar, which can the condo association would essentially be able to collect a lease payment and then low-income residents in Cambridge would be able to subscribe to that community solar project and help them save on their energy costs as well. So if you are a condo owner in a particularly large building, that could be a pathway that you could consider. And again, otherwise, we'd encourage you to visit Energy Sage to connect with the residential installer or explore one of the different energy programs that are supported by the city. And so just to recap some of the other programs we have here, under what we used to call the Cambridge Energy Alliance is now called the city's community energy programs. We do have a number of different city-supported programs that are designed to support residential customers as well as small businesses. So the first thing we always recommend folks to do is to get a mass save energy assessment, whether you're in a residential building or a small business. It can help just make your building more energy efficient and lower energy bills. One of the benefits of solar is using all renewable energy, but regardless of if you can install solar on your rooftop or not, you can still use all renewable energy through the city's community electricity program. Every electricity account in Cambridge is automatically enrolled in the city's aggregation program or the community electricity program. And there's three different tiers. So the default one is called Standard Green, which uses 50% of the energy delivered is from renewable sources. You can opt up for about 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour more to what's called the 100% Green Plus tier. And in that one, you would be using all renewable energy. And again, that is offered to any residential or commercial account in the city. You can also save on electricity costs by enrolling in a community solar project. So in this case, you're not installing solar, but you are subscribing or becoming a member in an offsite community solar project, which helps you get some of the financial benefits of solar. So if you, most people would save between about 5 to 10% on their electricity costs. If you have a qualifying income, you could receive a greater discount, which would be about 15 to 20%. So between community solar and the community electricity program, you can get both some of the financial benefits of installing solar as well as the environmental benefit of using renewable energy. Electrify Cambridge is a relatively new program in the last year or two that is for residential customers, and it provides free technical assistance to help get your home off of fossil fuels and to electrify different energy systems in your home. So most commonly, this might be installing heat pumps, induction cooking, heat pump water heaters, electric upgrades, things like that. It can also support and advise on solar. Again, if you're a smaller residential customer and this program isn't the right fit for you, Electrify Cambridge might be able to provide support around solar and other home energy upgrades. They would likely still refer you to Energy Sage, but they are able to provide more custom guidance around solar and other upgrades you might be interested in. The way this program works is the city provides this free technical assistance from Abode Energy Management, which is our program partner for that program. So Abode is not trying to sell you anything. They're just providing this free expert sort of advising and consulting service, help guide you through these upgrades, connect you to incentives, help you find contractors and things like that. To get connected to any of these programs, we would encourage you to contact the Cambridge Energy Helpline. Can support both residential and small businesses. The phone number is right there, 617-430-6230. And you can also reach them by email at cambridge@allinenergy.org. And again, that is sort of the entry point for any of these or other programs that you might be interested in. Contacting the Cambridge Energy Helpline can connect you to any of those programs that the city offers or supports. So with that, that's my introduction. I'm going to pass it over to Sana Wright, who's from Resonant Energy. And again, Resonant is the partner in the solar systems program with the city. Sana?
Thank you, Brad, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. As Brad said, my name's Sana. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager at Resonant Energy, and I'll be presenting today on our joint program with the City of Cambridge. I have a background in urban planning and community engagement, especially around renewable energy. And at Resonant, I manage our partnerships and programs that help educate on the benefits of and expand access to solar across the state. I'm a Cambridge native, so I'm excited to be part of this program and will probably be familiar with your building. My colleague Rachel, our communications and grant manager, is also on to help answer your questions. As Brad said, you can drop those in the chat and then we'll have time at the end for an open Q&A. Here's the agenda for today. I'll talk a little bit more about who Resonant is and introduce the Solar Assistance Program for anyone who is new to us. And then I'll discuss the benefits of solar, what the solar policy landscape looks like today, because it's been changing a lot these days, and provide a more detailed program overview, including FAQs and next steps. And then at the end, like I said, we'll have Q&A. So who is Resonant Energy? We are a Boston-based full-service commercial solar developer. We're honored to have been selected through a competitive RFP process to be the city's official partner in this program. We were founded in 2016 with a mission to expand access to clean energy in underinvested communities. And today we primarily do that by helping nonprofit organizations, schools, universities, senior living communities, and housing developers, especially in the affordable and supportive housing space, go solar and take advantage of all the financing and funding opportunities available to them. We essentially operate as a general contractor or GC for solar. So we manage the entire construction process in addition to helping you capture incentives and supporting you through creative financing pathways. We also have a very strong policy and advocacy arm that allows us to do a lot of grant funded work in alignment with our mission. We are B Corp certified and employee owned, and our office is based in Boston, but we work all over the state and have done some projects in New York as well. We've installed over 300 solar projects to date. Here are just a few that you might recognize. Cambridge Redevelopment Authority is a nonprofit organization in Central Square. We have historically also done a lot of work for houses of worship, including Christ Church in Harvard Square. And then Homeowners Rehab is an affordable housing developer in Cambridge. Building pictured here is it's a high rise in Inman Square. We've installed and turned on over 35 systems for their development so far. And we also installed solar for the Windsor School, an all-girls school in Boston. This one was exciting because it was initiated by a group of students. And these are just a sample of our completed projects. We are underway with many more exciting projects in the Boston area, including for Harvard's Arboretum and JP, as well as several for the Cambridge Housing Authority. So we launched the Solar Assistance Program back in April in partnership with the City of Cambridge. At a high level, this program helps property owners understand their building's cost savings potential through solar, and we hope makes solar more accessible by offering technical assistance and various installation pathways that I'll talk about later. The goal is really to help property owners capture the financial benefits of solar while also contributing to the city's goal of net zero by 2050. So as a participant, you'll receive a solar feasibility analysis for your building or portfolio, no cost to you, which includes a preliminary design and a detailed cash flow that outlines costs and savings over the system's lifetime. And then if you do decide to go solar after participating in the program, you can seamlessly proceed with installation through us. So just for a bit of background on solar adoption in Cambridge. Cambridge has already made great progress towards their clean energy goals, but there is still a bit of a way to go. Part of their net zero action plan is to install 50 megawatts of solar by 2030, and we are currently about 20% of the way there. Part of the challenge has been due to the fact that Cambridge faces some unique barriers to installing solar. specifically lots of dense, shady rooftops, lots of multifamily buildings with many owners, as well as lots of renter-occupied units where property owners don't necessarily pay electricity costs and therefore may not be incentivized to install solar. So the Solar Assistance Program is intended to support property owners through these challenges and give everyone a chance to contribute to a cleaner, more affordable, more resilient city while also reducing electricity costs, and for larger property owners preparing for compliance with emission reduction ordinances like BUDO. And before we dive into more program details, you may be wondering why you should consider solar at all right now, especially when there are many other projects you could be spending your time on and things likely feel a little bit uncertain right now in the solar policy landscape. The most compelling case for solar, or the stick, is that the cost of electricity is very high. You can see in this graph from the US Energy Information Administration that there's not only a clear upward trend in average electricity prices, but that Massachusetts electricity prices are significantly higher than the national average, which is the blue line, versus state prices are the brown line. This is in large part because the state of Massachusetts, like many others, continues to rely on oil and gas, which are imported and therefore subject to inflation and unpredictable price spikes spurred by things like tariffs and global events. As it currently stands, Massachusetts already has some of the most expensive electricity in the country, and under the new administration, the cost of electricity is expected to rise more quickly than before. On the other hand, Massachusetts stands out in another way as well. We have some of the best solar incentives in the state, or carrots, which likely explain why solar deployment is high. Not to mention, solar is a reliable way to protect against the increasing costs and price spikes that I highlighted in the last slide. The leading program here, the leading incentive program in Massachusetts, is called SMART, which has been named one of the best in the country. SMART offers cash payments to anyone who owns a solar system. And in the cash flows that we create for you as part of this program, you'll see how this incentive factors into cost savings for your specific site. What's very timely is that a new iteration of SMART with better incentives called SMART 3 has just rolled out. I believe today was the first day for enrollment. So now is a great time to install. I'll provide some more details on what those changes look like in the next section. But in addition to SMART, Massachusetts is generally also pretty good about having grant programs available to organizations that want to install solar, and we can help you apply for those to help cover the cost of installation if you decide to proceed with solar. One example right now is the low-income services solar program, which will cover up to 100% of installation costs for nonprofits that are providing critical services to low-income populations. So here's what we tend to see when a building goes solar. Installing solar means you are no longer reliant on oil, gas, or other imported fuels. Instead, you are energy self-sufficient. You're producing clean energy on site that is insulated from inflation, from tariffs, from price spikes. And this increased resiliency, we find, saves buildings anywhere from 40 to 100% on their electricity bills, and as a result allows them to direct more money elsewhere. So just a few examples. One example is this nonprofit in Auburndale. They installed solar in 2018, and since then, electricity costs have actually risen twice as quickly as they did in the 15 years prior to their installation. And as a result, this organization will save $172,000 more on their operating costs than what we predicted when we first did their solar feasibility analysis. And without solar, they would have paid Eversource, their utility, $800,000 in electricity costs over the system's 25-year lifetime. So that's a lot of money saved. And then on the next slide, we have an example of what this might look like on your electricity bill. We installed a parking canopy array for this museum in Acton. And pre-solar in November 2021, they had an electricity bill, as you'll see, of nearly $1,400. And then in December 2024, after installing solar, they didn't have to pay anything because their system offset 100% of their electricity usage. So now that you have an idea of what impact solar can have for your building, I'll talk a little bit more about what incentives look like now and what is available to you in the current landscape. So many of you are probably familiar with the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the IRA, which was passed in 2022. It was the largest climate bill ever passed by Congress and offers some of the strongest incentives for solar to date. It specifically made the transition to solar a lot easier for nonprofit organizations and institutions. Some highlights of the IRA is that it increased the base tax credit, which you see here in blue, light blue, that was set to sunset from 22% to 30% and signed it into law until 2032. The IRA also allows additional tax credits above the 30% to be received for projects that meet specific criteria. So that includes these darker blue and purple boxes here. Projects in or serving low-income communities can receive a 10 or 20% adder, depending on their location. And then those in energy communities, which are areas with formerly robust fossil fuel industries that are now experiencing high levels of unemployment, can receive an additional 10%. That's the energy community adder that you see there. And then projects that are built with domestically sourced equipment can receive yet another 10%. That's the dark blue box at the top. So through this policy, it's possible to receive up to 70% tax credit on a given solar project. And the IRA also instated direct pay for nonprofits, which basically allows nonprofits, tax-exempt organizations, to claim this tax credit as a check reimbursement from the IRS. So this means you can benefit even if you don't have a tax appetite. And what this tends to look like is that in year one of the solar system's operation, you receive at least this 30% base reimbursement on the total cost of the system. And then just moving into the current landscape, unfortunately, the recent federal tax bill has undone much of the IRA and set the tax credits to phase out earlier than the 2032 date. So while there is still time to take advantage of this significant incentive, it's not much time, and I will walk through that timeline with you all. The new law basically allows you to still capture the tax credit if you install and turn on your system by December 31st, 2027. So that gives us 2 years, and until then, the benefits are largely the same, meaning you can receive adders and apply for direct pay. If you think you'll need more time to finish a solar project, you can meet the safe harbor deadline of July 4th, 2026, and then have 4 years to install and turn on your project, bringing us to 2030. And safe harboring, for those who don't know, means making a meaningful start to construction and incurring 5 to 10% of project costs. So you'd have to do that before July 4th of next year, 2026. And the good news is that while tax credits are phasing out, SMART, the state incentive program I talked about, is ramping up. Funding for the original SMART program had run out, but as of today, you can enroll in SMART 3.0, which will have significantly higher incentives across a number of projects, including community solar and parking canopies. I will come back to these deadlines, but first want to share a little bit more about this new SMART program. So some highlights. SMART 3 is a revamped version of the original SMART program with higher incentives and no declining blocks, which means there's more predictability around the incentive values year over year. It also brings updated adders, which you can stack on top of the base incentive, similar to that structure for the tax credit. Specifically for parking canopies, rooftop raised racking projects, and community shared solar projects. So if you have a large parking lot or a crowded roof with a lot of HVAC, these higher payouts for canopies and raised racking compensate for the increased project cost for those types of constructions. And then if you have more space for solar than you need to offset your own usage, you can allocate a percentage of the electricity generated to low-income customers at a discount and be eligible for the community shared solar adder as well. And any project that is just getting started will be eligible for SMART 3.0. So that's exciting. And here's just an example of what the upside is for projects that enroll in SMART compared to in this new SMART compared to the previous version of SMART. This is a nonprofit in New Bedford that will receive $162,000 upside as a result of the new program. So now is a great time to get solar up. And I know that was a lot of information, so I just want to recap the deadlines for the tax credit specifically because we are up against a clock. As I said, if you put 5 to 10% of project cost towards beginning solar construction, also known as safe harboring, by July 4th, 2026, that's the first deadline that's coming up, you will have 4 years to complete the project, bringing us to 2030. And as the name suggests, this is the safest route to receiving the tax credit because it buys you the most time to get your system up and running. If you do not safe harbor, the next deadline to keep in mind is December 31st, 2027. You'll have until then to install and turn on your system if you want to receive the tax credits. And then you'll see here that I grayed out this earlier deadline of December 31st, 2025. Just because it's unlikely you'll be able to meet this deadline if you're just starting to explore solar now. Meeting this deadline would ensure that you don't need to adhere to what's called foreign entities of concern requirements, which restrict where you can source equipment from. And the potential downside of not meeting this deadline is that equipment costs might be higher for projects that have to comply with this requirement. But we do not expect it to impact the financial viability of most projects, and we can assess that with you once we're in touch about your specific site and project. And I'd say in any case, we're here to navigate these changes with you and are prepared to protect your tax credit in whatever way makes the most sense for your project because we know how significant these incentives are. So let's talk about how this program can help you navigate all these incentives. What exactly does the program offer? The program's primary offering, the Solar Assistance Program's primary offering is solar technical assistance, generally speaking, at no cost to you. This means we can answer questions and help you explore your solar options so that you can make an informed decision about solar before incurring any costs. And as part of this, we will conduct a solar feasibility analysis of your building, which includes preliminary designs and cash flows for the system's 25-year lifetime that show all the incentives that I just talked about, like SMART and federal tax credit, and how those factor into your costs and savings. And we'll do this for any number of sites and any solar installation pathway, any of the 3 that we sort of have set up for this program. And on the next slide, I'll talk through what those are. Solar installation pathways. So here are the 3 pathways offered through this program. It may make sense to explore just one. It may make sense to explore all three. It kind of depends on your site, your budget, your priorities. Direct ownership is always the most straightforward option. In this option, you buy the system outright. You receive all the state and federal incentives that I just discussed. And because of that, they'll always see the highest long-term savings on the direct ownership option. Depending on your site, we may design a standard rooftop array, a parking canopy, or a system with rooftop system with raised racking if you have a lot of HVAC or other obstructions. And then, as I mentioned, if you have more roof or parking lot space, then you need to offset your own electricity usage. It may actually make sense to invest in a community shared solar system and receive that additional smart incentive. We can help you assess which one of these would be the best path forward, or the best sort of design if you're going the direct ownership route once we take a look at your site. And the next two options are no cost options, in which a third-party financer owns the system that is then installed on your roof or in your parking lot. And because you don't own the system, you are not responsible for any upfront or ongoing costs or any maintenance of the system. We find that these are best suited for organizations that are unable to make that upfront investment, which is required of direct ownership. And so there are two ways to benefit from no-cost solar installations. In a no-cost power purchase agreement, or PPA, you will enter into an agreement with the financer to purchase the electricity produced by the system at a discounted rate. That discount is usually about 15 to 20% off your standard utility rate. And so over time, you'll still save plenty of money on your electricity bills. And then, just like if you were to purchase a community solar system, if you have a particularly large roof, you can choose to host a community solar system on your roof, which sends clean energy credits to low-income customers. In this case, instead of receiving discounted energy yourself, you'll receive a monthly lease payment for hosting, which for some organizations is a significant enough revenue stream to help offset operating expenses, even though they aren't sort of directly applied to your bill in the same way that that discount is in a PPA. Great, and then this is an example cash flow for the direct ownership option. You'll also get these for the other options. They look slightly different since you wouldn't be capturing the incentives. But I'll just show this as an example. On this slide, you'll see here, we just have year one, and then an explanation of what each sort of column means. The electricity generated by the solar system is here in yellow, and in this case is used directly by you. So you save on your utility costs, which you can see here in blue. And then additional revenue comes from the various incentives I talked about, including SMART in green here, which after 10 years transitions to another incentive called REX, which is why we have that column there as well as the federal tax credit in the tax benefits column. And what we'll do is we'll add all these savings together and subtract here in gray the estimated insurance and operations and maintenance costs to get to the total annual benefit. And then on the next slide, you can see how this pans out over 25 years. You'll see clearly that in this case, the client would break even after year 4. And then at the end of the system's 25-year lifetime, the client will have saved $240,000 after they sort of break even on the system, upfront cost of the system. So this is just an example of the information that we provide as part of this program that can help inform your decision-making process and sort of give you a clear picture of what solar ownership looks like. And so if you want to get started with the feasibility analysis, and understand what installation pathway might make the most sense for you, see what a cash flow would look like for your building. These are the steps you can take. You can either fill out an interest form or reach out directly to us via the email that I already shared in the chat. And I'll also share information for the interest form and the email again on the next slide. And then assuming you'll qualify, we'll then set up an introductory call with you to learn more about your building and your solar priorities. We'll need you to share some basic building information with us, including roof ages and your latest electricity bill. This is sort of the basics of what we need to complete a thorough feasibility analysis. And then we'll present the results to you as a solar proposal and review it with you in depth over a virtual meeting. And then after you've received your proposal, we of course hope that you will proceed with solar. And if you do, at this point, if you need it, we can help you apply for additional grant funding to help cover the cost of your system. And we'll get started with the next steps of the installation process, conducting a site visit to initiate the final design, permitting, and construction processes. And then just before we open up the floor and share the information for getting signed up, I just thought I would cover some frequently asked questions. So Brad already covered this, but basically all owners of commercial and large multifamily buildings in Cambridge are eligible to sign up for this program. If you're a condo association or a member of a condo association, there are some specific requirements, but we'd be happy to take a look at your site. You may be wondering how large your roof needs to be. If you are assessing just one building, we require a 25 kilowatt minimum, which typically requires about 2,500 square feet of roof space. If you're coming to us with a portfolio of buildings, we can work with slightly smaller roofs. And just as a reminder, residential condo roofs must be at least 77,500 square feet to work with us through this program, which is about 3 times our minimum for commercial buildings. So that's just something to keep in mind. Does your roof need to be new? In most cases, your roof should not be over 10 years old, just so that you don't run into a scenario where you have to replace your roof while the solar is still up. This will depend on roof material. Most of the time that 10-year limit is applicable, but if you have a metal roof, for example, or other materials, sometimes that's longer if they have extended life, so we can assess that for you. And if you're looking to replace your roof in preparation for solar, we can always recommend a roofer. Another question that comes up a lot is, do I need to own my building? It is easiest to install solar on a building you own. In some cases, we can work with tenants who have roof rights, long-term leases, or just generally strong working relationships with their landlords. So feel free to reach out to us if that's the case. And then this is redundant, but as I said, with condo associations, we typically can only work with you if your building has a large roof, at least 7,500 square feet. And then lastly, what if your organization doesn't have the money to install solar? As I mentioned, as part of our feasibility analysis and as part of the program, we have pathways for both ownership and no-cost solar. So if you proceed with ownership, we can help you apply for grants to cover outstanding costs if you need it, and you qualify for some of the grants that are open right now. And otherwise, we can help you get started with a no-cost option, and the system will be installed at no cost to you. And then just one more slide with a QR code that you can take a picture of, scan to fill out our interest form. Interest form is also available on the program website. And as we mentioned, you can also reach out to us directly if any questions come up after this. But at this point, I'll open up the floor. feel free to either raise your hand or drop your questions in the
Yeah,
chat.
great. Great. Thank you, Sana, and thanks everyone for sticking around through the presentation. Just a few kind of housekeeping reminders. So one, I put this in the chat, but we are going to send around the slides and a copy of the presentation following. It'll probably happen next week because we do have to get the presentation uploaded to the city's YouTube channel. Also, if you do have a question, so again, everyone is muted, but if you would like to ask a question live, you can use the raise hand function, which you should see on your bottom toolbar. And if you don't, you might see three dots that say more, and it should be there. If you really, let's see. Yeah, so it would actually come from the React button is typically where you'll find it. So you can use that. If you click that, you'll see an option to raise your hand. We'll invite you to come off mute and you can ask live. Or if you'd like, you can submit questions using the Q&A button also on the bottom toolbar, or maybe found in more if you don't see it there. So either one of those works. We're happy to take some time and answer questions. And again, there is the program email address in the chat that you can always send follow-up questions to as well. So thank you again, Sana, for the presentation. And I do see we have one question in the Q&A. So I'll gladly get started with that, which is a question asking, what are the options for a larger, say, 20 plus unit condo building or condo association?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say it depends on your roof size. So if you want to fill out the interest form, we can get some more information about your building and go from there.
And
Yeah,
I would
well,
also
that
say,
will-
oh, go ahead, Rachel.
I was gonna say a lot of that will maybe depend on what your roof looks like. Just if you have, say, a lot of HVAC systems, how much open space there is on your roof. So you could have lots of space or you could have not. It just kind of depends on the roof.
And just the other resource I would point folks towards is Electrify Cambridge, which is designed to work with residential buildings. Multifamily and condo buildings is difficult for solar, just because the multiple owners and the way some of the financing works out, as Sana touched on. Electrify Cambridge is a city program that offers you free consulting services from home energy experts that can advise on solar as well as other things. So again, they would likely point you towards Energy Sage as a starting point. But if there's things you're really looking as this as part of a bigger building retrofit that involves solar and electric upgrades and other heating and cooling things, that program is designed to kind of provide you that really expert sort of like hand-holding step-by-step assistance. So if you're not a good fit for this program, I would definitely direct you towards the Electrify Cambridge program too. So again, feel free if you'd like, you can add questions to the Q&A or you can use the raise hand function, which is found under the React button. And we'll give it just another minute in case there are questions that pop into folks' minds. Well, great. Well, if there's no questions, that's okay too. Thanks for the one person who did ask a question here. We just say this one more time. The email address for the program for any follow-up questions, if you do have them or if you want to get started, cambridgesolar@resonant.energy. Can also visit the program website. The URL is on the screen. It's came.ma/solar assistance. And while it's up there now, you can also scan that QR code, which will bring you to that page, and you can fill out the interest form to get started. Certainly encourage you to reach out, and we hope to see you involved in the program in some capacity. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. We know your time is valuable. We appreciate you spending some time with us and learning about this program. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.